Okay, well, Diptyque Laurent is with me now in studio to take us through what's making headlines in the world papers. Diptyque, let's start with what's making the front pages of a few French newspapers and even some pretty impressive pictures and a callback to the protests of May 1968. It's the ongoing strikes here.
Well, which strikes, you might be asking today, Eve, because there are so many strikes taking place right now. It's all part of what the unions are hoping might be a convergence of strikes. Air France employees, civil servants, students, health professionals, in addition to railway workers, they're all striking right now. L'Humanité, the communist paper, fully supports this movement. The railway workers strike, they say on the front page, is our battle too. We're all in the same train, they add. It's a different story, though, obviously, from the conservative French paper Le Figaro. The unions may want a convergence of strikes, but this, quote, ambitious project is flailing, according to Le Figaro. The unions are making less and less of an impact in the workplace. They also add that the railway strikes that began a fortnight ago are already losing steam, at least according to Le Figaro.
Meanwhile, the French president really is determined, saying he will not be bullied into going back from his planned reforms.
That's right. He was in the city of Saint-Dié-des-Vosges yesterday in eastern France to present plans for reviving the local economy there, but he was actually heckled by railway workers. Le Parisien explains that the French president was accused once again of being the president of the rich, but he asked striking workers not to hold everybody hostage. I'm quoting Emmanuel Macron there. Now, that comment about him being the president of the rich is something that just keeps following him. It's been following him ever since he became French president almost a year ago. It's inspired this rather tongue-in-cheek cartoon from Libération's Willem. Here is Macron climbing the rails saying, "I'm not the president of the rich. I'm the president of unhappy commuters." He might also be the president of unhappy protesters.
One thing, however, he is and has been ever since he was candidate is a champion of the European Union. And today he's heading to Berlin to meet with Chancellor Angela Merkel to defend his vision for Europe. Any articles on that?
We're seeing this article from Les Echos, the French business paper, which says in this article they're tackling the hard stuff. Le dur, that's what they say. You rentre dans le dur. They're tackling the hard stuff. Macron wants to reform the Eurozone, notably sort out the question of debt. He also wants to create a European right to asylum. But the thing is, Merkel may not necessarily, quote, give in to his charm. Indeed, the embattled German leader is facing resistance from her own conservative party, who don't necessarily share the same visions as Emmanuel Macron, so she'll probably have a hard time trying to reconcile the two sides.
Yeah, difficult balancing act. What are the German papers saying about it?
Well, we've got a cartoon from Süddeutsche Zeitung that sees Macron seeing himself as a superhero of Europe. Vive l'Europe, he says, wearing this cape. Hero-like cape emboldened with the stars of the European flag as he runs towards, let's say, a rather resistant-looking Merkel. So clearly it's not going to be an easy task.
Looks like the red carpet has been just pulled up at the very last
under
step
his feet
there.
Exactly. Now, Der Spiegel's writer, another German paper, well, they here urge Angela Merkel to offer an olive branch to Emmanuel Macron and his ideas. After all, the writer says, if Macron fails, Europe fails, adding, I quote, "The EU can cope with Brexit, but not an anti-European government in Paris should Macron not be re-elected in 2022.
Okay.
We're already looking that far ahead.
I'm telling you, it's like, let's deal with the live in the here and now, people. But one thing that has got a lot of attention as it's just happened is this reaction to the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's decision to bring elections forward by over a year.
A rather surprise decision. That's what the Saudi paper Al Awsat says. They call it a surprise blow to the opposition party in Turkey, saying the call for early elections comes perhaps as President Erdogan fears for his own waning popularity. The country is, of course, plagued by economic problems as well, and keeping this election corruption-free will be a major challenge, Al Awsat says. Turkey is gearing up for a hot summer in many ways, while a writer from Hurriyet Daily, a Turkish paper, wonders if the early elections aim to destabilize the newly formed IYI party to prevent it from running in this election. She says ballots may change, bags of votes may vanish, and corruption may be rampant. But the biggest problem in Turkey is the politicization of every subject in Turkey. Turks have lost their mutual trust, she says.
Okay, well, finally from you, Diptyque, for this hour, I'm not a big fan of dogs, but I have to say this did strike me as quite sad. It's a bit of the end of an era for Queen Elizabeth's 8 generations of corgis.
Well, the Daily Telegraph reports that Queen Elizabeth had to put down, rather sadly, her last beloved Corgi, Willow, who was suffering from cancer last weekend. The heart-wrenching decision, as any pet owner can understand, is intensified by the fact that the death of this Corgi ends 8 decades of royal family Corgi breeding. She actually fell in love with them for the first time at the age of 6, so it goes way, way back. The Telegraph says she once famously said, "My Corgis are family." Well, that family has ended now due to her decision 3 years ago to stop breeding Corgis. The Telegraph explains she said she didn't want to leave any Corgis behind when she dies one day. A great sacrifice for a true Corgi lover.
That's funny because it is quite the image of the Queen. You have her with those little dogs. Deputy Laurent, thanks a lot for scouring the papers for us. It's time for us to take a very quick break now, but back with all the latest updates in just a few minutes, so do stay with us.